It's Tuesday, January 4. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says the shortage of the AstraZeneca vaccine in Jamaica should be resolved by the end of this week. He explained on Monday that the issue is related to supply and distribution challenges. On Monday, some persons turned up at vaccination sites but were told that there was no AstraZeneca vaccine to administer. Just about 1.21 million Jamaicans have gotten the jab so far. More than half of that number have been fully vaccinated. 2021 had the unenviable distinction of being one of the bloodiest, as 482 road fatalities were recorded, the highest number since 2004. In fact, the Road Safety Unit reported that 22 persons died in traffic accidents between Christmas Eve, December 24, and December 30. In reviewing these statistics, Transport Minister Robert Montague said speeding was the main factor behind the fatalities.
The day in the week that you have most accidents is on a Friday, followed by a Saturday, followed by a Sunday. The weekend. And then that is followed by Wednesday. So what I've also found in the research is that 88% of the 473 persons who have died on our roads are males. And they are males within a specific age group. Between 20 and 29 is the vast majority of young men who are dying on our roads. Road accidents are slowly depriving young ladies of potential husbands. People, when they are just about to get into the working world and to develop, they are dying on our roads. It's not a good sign for the country. And speed is the #1 reason for the crashes. And Independence Day is the public holiday that accounts for most accidents and fatalities on our roads.
In an effort to drive home the need for road safety, the minister said the long-awaited amendments to the Transport Authority Act will be laid in the House of Representatives in early 2022.
Early in January, we will be laying the new Road Traffic Act regulations, and we'll be laying the amendments to the Transport Authority Act. 2 bits of legislation that the country has been waiting for a long while. And I want to publicly apologize that we had committed to laying them by the 14th of December, but our technocrats were not ready, and we had to take the criticism, but I'm told that they are there now. And early in the new year, as soon as Parliament reconvenes, we will be able to lay those 2 important pieces of legislation to help to treat with the question of road safety.
He was speaking last Wednesday at the Transport Authority's launch of its EduFocal online training for PPV drivers and conductors. A blocked drain. That's the most probable cause of continuous flooding of the Tinson Aerodrome and a section of the Marcus Garvey Drive in St. Andrew. According to Minister of Transport and Mining Robert Montague, the Airports Authority of Jamaica, AAJ Engineering Department, did a study on the area and discovered the problem. He says funds have been set aside to address it. The minister disclosed in an interview with JIS News that whenever flooding occurs in the area, all tenants at the Tinson facility are affected, and a budget is in place for the project. The tourism sector clawed its way back to some recovery in 2021 after being hamstrung by the COVID-19 pandemic the previous year. Projections for 2022 are more aggressive in growth expectations, and one way to do this is with the Explore Jamaica app. The app was launched late last year by the tourism product development company TPDCO. Portfolio Minister Edmund Bartlett outlined its features.
Some of the features include a travel cost estimator, which is important for comparing destinations. In addition, there is a travel guide for users to map their way from ports. Users will also be able to view restaurants and shops near to their place of stay. Elements that encourage user engagement and feedback will prove useful for tourism entities and the sector overall.
The app will be maintained annually at a cost of $500,000.
This new app, appropriately named Explore Jamaica, is the brainchild of TPDCO. It invites users to find information about various tourism businesses on the island. The annual cost for the maintenance of this app is approximately $500,000 Jamaican, plus the cost associated with the use of our highly skilled internal professionals who guarantee a high quality outcome. And this app was conceptualized in the late 2019, not as a response to COVID-19, but in keeping with technological advancements of the time.
Governor General, His Excellency Sir Patrick Allen, voiced words of hope in his New Year's message to the nation. He says as Jamaicans enter the new year, they should see it as a new dawn of limitless possibility.
So we take flight into the new year, ready to reaffirm our commitment to God and country, to celebrate each other, to believe in ourselves, and to continue building a solid foundation for generations to come. One step at a time, one day at a time.
Renowned Jamaican businessman James Solomon has died. PBCJ understands that Mr. Solomon passed away just before 1 Tuesday morning at the University Hospital of the West Indies. The former Director of Corporate Affairs at Grace Kennedy Limited was also a former president of the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, JCC, and ex-chairman of the Board of Directors at the UHWI. The passing of the prominent businessman is generating shock in sections of the business community in Jamaica and overseas. The PBCJ wishes to give its condolences to his family and friends. We now get the latest market updates from Gabriel Thompson in this quick business report.
In foreign exchange trading for Monday, January 3, the US dollar sold for an average $155.64. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $121.28. The pound sterling traded for $207.74, and the euro sold for an average $178.47. In Monday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 4,113 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall, market activity resulted from trading in 95 stocks, of which 49 advanced, 33 declined, and 13 traded firm. The Junior Market Index advanced by 25 points to close at over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 1834 Investments Limited, and Access Financial Services Limited. Stocks declined for Cargo Handlers Limited, Caribbean Producers Jamaica Limited, and Derrimon Trading Company Limited. Trading firm were AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, CAC 2000 9.5% preference shares, and Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited. Sterling Investments Limited was the volume leader with over 2.5 million units, followed by Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with over 1.3 million units, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited with over 1.1 million units. In market data for oil, prices were flat on Tuesday ahead of a meeting where major producers are expected to stick to plans to add supply in February, as soaring COVID-19 cases have yet to spark lockdowns in the biggest fuel-consuming countries. Brent crude futures gained 1 cent to $78.99 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures slipped 2 cents to $76.06 a barrel. The two benchmark contracts both climbed more than 1% on Monday. And with that, we close this Tuesday edition of the Business Report inside the news on PBCJ. I'm Gabriel Thompson. Pleasant viewing.
In regional news, COVID-19 home test kits may not be as accurate as PCR tests. During Monday's COVID-19 media conference, Minister of Health for Trinidad and Tobago, Terence Singh, said the home test kits may provide varying results for a number of reasons. Kimberly D'Souza explains.
The issue with home test kits is that you get a high degree of false negatives. And a false negative is much more dangerous than a false positive. And that is why persons with a negative test with a home kit should have it validated by a PCR test.
Minister of Health Terence Singh said the varying results given by the COVID-19 home test kits occur for a multiple of reasons. While the kits are inexpensive and return results in a shorter period than PCR tests, Mr. Singh said they are not as accurate.
They have noticed in trials with these kits that they get much more accurate results when the kits are when the swabs are properly used or used by a professional as opposed to a person at home who may be in a rush.
He also noted an issue when testing asymptomatic patients.
They are good for testing the symptomatic persons, and if you get a positive, you could rely on it. But the issue is, if you get a negative test, you need to have that confirmed by a PCR. And that is the global practice around the world.
Still, Minister Singh encouraged people to use the home test kits. But he said those who want to use the kits at home should first seek approval from the Chemistry, Food and Drug Division.
Once the kit is registered in their home country of manufacture, that is basically all they'll look at. So it's a very simple process, and we just ask all importers. We have made it as easy as possible. We want to encourage home testing.
He confirmed this country has used 180 antigen tests throughout the system. Kimberly D'Souza, TDT News.
In Barbados, a total of 108 candidates from several parties and 9 independents will contest the January 19 general election, the outcome of which the party leaders say will be crucial to Barbados overcoming challenges ahead.
The final tally was reported by election authorities. Supervisor of Elections Angela Taylor meantime told Barbados Today that Monday's nomination day process went well. Among those filing nomination papers amid COVID-19 restrictions were Prime Minister and leader of the Barbados Labour Party, Mia Mottley, Democratic Labour Party leader, Verla de Pisa, and leader of the Alliance Party for Progress, Bishop Joseph Atherley. The Barbados Labour Party and the Democratic Labour Party are both fielding a full slate of 30 candidates, while the Alliance Party for Progress has nominated a total of 20 candidates.
In the Bahamas, opposition leader Michael Pintard is calling on the government to outline the reason for frequent international travel by the Prime Minister and his cabinet ministers. More from our news.
According to Pintard, Prime Minister Philip Davis has traveled more times than any other Prime Minister he's known for the first 100 days in office.
It is important that the government clearly outline what meetings ministers are attending, and the Prime Minister, who has certainly traveled more than certainly any other Prime Minister that I'm familiar with in the first 100 days. Out of curiosity, we'd like to know what are the total amount of days that the Prime Minister has traveled thus far since he's been in office, and to ask a more fundamental question than simply complaining about ministers' travel. To what extent the Prime Minister is going to meetings that diplomats can quite easily manage those issues.
In November, Press Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Clint Watson, said government will not disclose the cost of specific trips of cabinet ministers unless there is some abnormality. Since taking office, several cabinet ministers traveled internationally. Davis and a delegation traveled to Scotland for COP26. Education Minister Glenys Hannah Martin traveled to Paris, France, and Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper and a delegation traveled to Switzerland. Additionally, Davis, Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell, and Ambassador to CARICOM Leslie Miller-Bryce recently traveled to Barbados. Ahead of a recent trip to Washington, D.C., Mitchell dismissed the notion as rubbish.
It is important that since we have resumed international travel, that is government ministers and the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, that they can outline what is the purpose of these trips. Are the delegations fit for purpose? And what is the cost associated?
No road fatalities or major accidents were recorded over the New Year's weekend in Grenada. The country's traffic department says it's good news.
During the period December 12th to the 18th, a total of 66 road accidents have been reported. However, as Christmas drew closer that weekend, the Royal Grenada Police Force reported a slight decrease from the 24th to the 27th December, 40 accidents. The traffic department is reporting a significant reduction this past weekend as compared to Christmas weekend, which saw at least 20 less accidents. Inspector Rondell Batiste, officer in charge of administration and operations at the traffic department, commends the motoring public and is hopeful that this downward trend in terms of accidents is maintained.
In relation to the past weekend for the period Friday to Sunday, 21 accidents being reported throughout the Tri-Island state of Grenada, Carriacou and PT Martinique, and all of the 21 accidents were minor accidents, so we had no serious, no fatal accident for that past weekend, which is a good sign for us. So it shows that we had a difference of over 20 accidents in comparison to the Christmas weekend, and this is a big plus for the Royal Grenada Police Force and the Traffic Department.
Police say they conducted a number of operations which resulted in vehicles being impounded. This too saw a slight decrease.
58 tickets, fixed penalty tickets were issued over that said weekend for different offenses, and that 58 tickets I'm talking about here from the different traffic departments throughout the Tri-Island state. 2 motor vehicles were impounded for the offense of using that vehicle was uninsured at the time. So the police would have impounded 2 motor vehicles. So I really want to commend the motoring public for them driving with due care and attention over that past weekend.
Inspector Batiste implores drivers to apply the right principles and remember the practical test that was done to obtain their license. He says if this is done, there will be a definite reduction in road accidents. Chrislina John, GBN News.
In sports, we're in the creases with cricket. Head coach Phil Simmons says West Indies will use the upcoming Ireland and England 2020 tours to retool their batting approach. The Caribbean side looks to rebuild after a disastrous T20 World Cup showing last October. West Indies lost 4 of their 5 games to finish 1 from bottom of their group and missing out on a semi-final spot in the World Cup. And with several changes made to that World Cup squad, Simmons says much of the focus would now be on rehabilitating the batting in order to achieve larger and more competitive totals. And that's our package. Join us tomorrow, same time, same place for more news and sport right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.